Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Let's go over what has happened to this stock, what we can expect moving forward, and all of that good stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. But if you do enjoy my thoughts on the charts, updates, technical analysis, whatever, I do share my thoughts with members every single day the market is open in my YouTube membership. That link is, of course, in the description of the video at the top of it. Where for $3 a month, you get access to the first tier, which includes mainly Tesla stock that I go over, sometimes other stocks as well. Or for tier 2, for $5 a month, you get access to everything in the first tier, plus, of course, NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day pretty flat, up 0.6% on the day, closing pretty much at $140 per share as we continue pretty much going sideways in this region. Now, it's not going as low as I expected it to, right? I was talking about how the lowest, the very lowest was 128, but the lower end of my current kind of sideways spectrum, if you will, that I expect NVIDIA to kind of do a whole lot of nothing ultimately, was about 142 to as low as about 133 to 4, right? We did go close to that today. 136.79, so we were a few dollars off. But like I said yesterday, when we were near the bottom, I did sell cash record puts. So I am technically in bullish positions. And as we continue doing nothing, hey, those cash record puts are pretty much going sideways. I think I can actually buy them back for like 90% off. I'm pretty sure it's like almost fully decayed. It's for tomorrow. But ultimately, NVIDIA is in a very interesting position here. So I want to start off with the 1 hour time frame, right? The 1 hour time frame is interesting. So we're about to get a move, I think. I honestly think we're about to get a move. Now, the question is it to the upside or to the downside? I still lean to the downside. I actually still think that there's a pretty damn good chance that we come down to about 134. Personally speaking. Why is that? Well, because the 1 hour is still having this massive wedge that we actually did break out to the downside this morning, right? You can see a nice little fall to the downside. And then it did pick up. Of course, it did pick up. It actually held surprisingly well, I will admit. But nonetheless, it did come down to the downside, right? I think from yesterday, it dropped about 2%, and then it pretty much recovered all of that and then some, right? And it's still holding around this general vicinity, right? Where, of course, we will find some resistance around this area. But the point is the fact that it did break down from this very steep rising wedge, which is a bit of a concerning sign, right? This can potentially have, maybe a cleaner test tomorrow. Maybe we get a nice little bull trap pop up to, 141.5, and then we come back down to that 134, 135-ish region. That is a possibility. But just the fact that we broke down out of this wedge, is a bit of a concerning sign, right? On the 1 hour time frame. Going over to the daily, however, this is where things get even more interesting. I forgot to mention, the reason I also want to bring up the 1 hour is because you can see the Bollinger Bands on the 1 hour right here. They're getting very tight, very tight. Usually when the Bollinger Bands get this tight, we're pretty close to, again, it is on the 1 hour time frame, so it's not going to be some astronomical move, but a move nonetheless, right? And a move that can potentially, even before earnings, decide if we break out of this, which I'll talk about on the daily, this, that descending channel resistance, right? Or this move will be the move that brings us back down to about that 134, 135 region, most likely fairly quickly. Could be even as early as tomorrow or Monday. But ultimately, again, I still stand by what I said pretty much back on Tuesday, that I still expect a whole lot of nothing overall for the stock, again, as high as about 142 to as low as about 134-ish, right? And, that's kind of what we're doing for now. Now, the daily is where I said things get a little bit interesting. Now, despite, of course, the RSI being a bit overbought, right? If I bring out the other bands, you can see we're not in the overbought territories, but, we're not far from it. We're kind of in there, kind of peeking our head into it, with the bands, of course, over here catching up, which is nice. But the thing that's interesting is the fact that we actually arguably turned this very large bottom channel. Remember this one, this kind of hollow one, if you will, that acted as a support many times. Remember this one? We talked about this many times in the past. And then we actually broke down from it. And the reason why I expected us to reject back here earlier when it was around 134 is because that was a 620 Fibonacci. And of course, it came back into this trendline resistance, which it did act as a resistance for almost a week over here. And then, of course, it finally broke above. Now, the interesting thing is the fact that because it did break above, there is an argument to be made that it is actually now back to turning this trend line over here, this one here, into a support. You can see the last 2 days, it actually arguably has been turning it into a support, which of course, clearly here you can see it acted as a resistance, here acted as supports, right? Which is potentially a good sign for the bulls, right? That it is showing some better strength than I initially expected, right? I actually personally expected this to continue slowly bleeding, and I still think that actually can definitely happen. But I will admit, it is still showing some pretty respectable strength, right? Definitely some pretty respectable strength by the bulls here. However, we're not out of the woods just yet from the bullish perspective, right? But the reason I said it was interesting is because we're getting close to an apex, right? We have the bottom of this channel right here, or this wedge, I should say, with this trend line, the kind of hollow one, which obviously is acting as a support. But we also have this large resistance on the descending channel, which, this red line, of course, which has acted as a resistance several times in the past as well. And now we're kind of getting close to what could be, of course, a climax. Now, there is a chance that we still go sideways here and wait until earnings. That is a very real possibility. In that case, I don't think my even 133 or 4 target will happen. In that case, there's a chance that, honestly, between like 142 to about 137 is all she wrote. Maybe I was a little bit too, my target to the downside was a little bit too far down. Maybe we only go between 142 and like 137, even more so, and get really tight, get very compressed right into earnings, which is just classic stuff. I mean, honestly, that's just classic behavior from a stock, right? And we really get compressed into earnings, which then should be a pretty explosive move for NVIDIA post earnings. Which would be very interesting. But again, the point I'm trying to make is the fact that we're getting close to what is arguably a bit of a, a little bit of a wedge here, a little bit of a wedge situation with this support over here and this resistance over here. We're getting pretty tight. We're getting very, very tight. So let's see how that plays out as well. But again, the reason I'm not just straight up buying shares here, in case you want to hear my thought process, right? This is why. Again, like I said yesterday, towards the end of the low of the day, I did enter cash secured puts for like, I think it was 134 I strike I picked, which again is pretty much free money at this point. But the reason I didn't straight up buy shares is because, number one, I didn't expect this trend line to hold. But number two, this is where I feel safer buying. And number three, especially when it's up here at around 139, 140, I personally speaking, not financial advice, just my opinion, I don't see a reason to buy shares here. Unless, of course, you just want to hold for the long term, which, that's obviously a perfectly valid thing. Because, yeah, earnings will be a massive gamble, right? It could completely rocket. And then congratulations, you missed that entry. Completely crashed. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what will happen to earnings. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. And if they say they know, they're full of shit. It's just that simple. Nobody knows what's going to happen on earnings, how good or bad the earnings will be, or how the market will react to the earnings. Nobody knows. But the reason, just technically speaking, I'm not buying up here, just straight up outright shares, is because, think about it. We're so close to potential breakout, and keywords potential, breakout right above this trend line, which again is not that far from here. It's like 141 and a half, 142, right? Like percentage wise, how much more is that from here, right? That's only about another 1.5%, maybe maximum 2%, right? But about 1.5%. So why risk that, right? Why essentially buy at a resistance when you can wait 1.5%, get a confirmed breakout and buy on strength? Because again, like, I just don't see the risk, the point of risking this little, oh my God, I don't want to miss 1.5% of a move when this could have potential to be a pretty significant top. Like that there is, unfortunately, there is potential for that. I'd rather wait to see a confirmed breakout and then buy on that strength above this trend line, essentially, because that will give me more confidence that the bulls are really stepping in and we really do want to move to, at the very least, retest all-time highs, if not even fresh all-time highs. You know what I mean? Hope that makes sense, right? But that's just my perspective, because again, technically speaking, while we're within this downward channel, we could still technically make our move all the way back to the opposite end of the spectrum, right? That is technically a possibility. It'll be pretty extreme, but you can't discount that, right? And again, you buy at support. You don't buy at resistance unless you break above that resistance. Then that's a different story, because then this area will, of course, probably turn into support. Plain and simple. But that's my perspective. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that's why I'm just selling cash secured puts, because I'm down to buy at 134, but I'm not down to buy at 139. It's just the risk is not there for me. I don't see why I would buy there when I can just wait 1.5% and buy in stronger confidence, essentially, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's my perspective. And yeah, going over to the options flow, take a look at the options flow. A little bit light on the day, 24 million, almost 25 million confirmed bullish flow. So the bulls are still dominating over the bears, but ultimately for NVIDIA, right? Again, for NVIDIA specifically, a little bit light on the day. Nothing really crazy, nothing to write home about. I can't even find it on the confirmed bullish or bearish flow. It's right here, actually, 24 million confirmed bearish flow. It is what it is. So let's see how that actually plays out into tomorrow. But yeah, let's see how this plays out. Let's see what actually happens. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. And as usual, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.